There was a very big, great tzaddik. His name was very, very famous. His name was Rav Yitzchak Halevi Mebaditchev. He always found good in any Jew. Any Jew, whatever you did, he always found good. He was a huge, huge, huge tzaddik. Now, where he lived, anytime they would have a boy that would come for a bris milah, so he would be the sandik. They put the boy on his lap, and he would be the sandik. So he came to his grandson's bris milah, his son's bris milah. And they invited everybody. After davening, they're going to do the bris, 8 o'clock. And the Baditchever Rebbe said, I got to go into my room, some machshavos, some thoughts, and I'll be right out. 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. Everybody went home already. Everybody was leaving. There was just a minyan. Of course, his son would not knock on his door and rush him. Finally, the Rebbe comes out. And he's happy. Now listen carefully, this is so scary. He comes out of the room with great happiness. Molas hayeled. They circumcise the child. Now his son, the Baditchever's son, was going to give this child a certain name. But before he could give a name, the Baditchever yelled out the name. A different name than his son wanted to name. Ladies, what was the name that the Baditchever Rav yelled out? V'tekef kara shemo, and he suddenly screamed out his name, Yehuda Leib, the name of this little boy. This story is written in Parshas Mata. It's this week's Parsha. Suddenly, the Baditchever Rebbe yelled out the name Yehuda Leib. The son was upset. Imagine you came to a bris, right? And you're going to name the kid Shmuel. It's your grandfather, right? And when they go, Ukara Shemo, the rabbi says, Ukara Shemo, and they called his name Yisrael, and then they asked the father, what do you want to name him? But instead of the rabbi asking the father, he says, Ukara Shemo, Binyamin. And that's his name. You can't go back. And the father's like, no, Shmuel. He said, Binyamin, right? It's too late. The guy, they'll go crazy. The whole family will go crazy. What do you mean? It was our grandfather. How could the rabbi name after whatever he wants? Over here, the Rabbi, Yehuda Leib. Scream out Yehuda Leib. The son didn't want to name Yehuda Leib. Who's Yehuda Leib? So, it's the Baditchever Rebbe. So they waited till the end of the bris, and the son went over to his father, and he said, what'd you do? First we waited 3 hours, all my friends left, everybody left. And then, you didn't give me a chance to give the name. You gave the name. Who's Yehuda Leib? So he says the following story. He says, I went into my room for 2 minutes, just to prepare myself for the bris milah. And I looked out the window. And when I looked out the window, it was a huge cloud. Not a normal weather cloud. A cloud with fire and smoke and black, and things were going on in the cloud. I looked at the cloud. There was stuff going on in the cloud. I was amazed. So, they were able to to go into themselves to see what's going on. And he said, I heard in my head that a great tzaddik had died, and his name was Rabbi Yehuda Leib Me'apta. He was called the Apta Rav, and he had just died. I think he was also called the Ohev Yisrael, if I'm not mistaken. He said, and there were thousands of tzaddikim that came out of Gan Eden with musical instruments to bring the neshama of this great tzaddik, Yehuda Leib, to Gan Eden. But even at tzaddik girls, darken le Gan Eden, on the way to Gan Eden, tzrichen lava derech Gehenna. They have to go through Gehenna. Even the biggest tzaddik, to get to his place in Gan Eden, in heaven, has to walk through hell. Why? He didn't do anything wrong. Why? So the Mefarshim say, because as big as a tzaddik you are, But if in your generation there are people sitting in Gehenna, in hell, then you're still a little bit responsible. So you need to see their pain, because maybe you didn't do enough. So on their way to their Gan Eden, they have to go through it. Is a bridge, it's brought down in Kabbalah, is a bridge, some go over, some go under, whatever it is. Okay? So, when he got there, he was on this bridge that goes through Gehenna. He jumped off. The Abdurrav, he's called the Oyev Yisrael, he jumped off and he jumped into hell. He jumped into Gehenna. But a tzaddik like that can't be in Gehenna, so they turned off all the fires. Here he is, he's standing in Gehenna. All the people are like, thank you for jumping in with us. The fires are all out. No ridiculous story. So, at that point, the Malach of Gehenna was very, very upset. He said, what are you doing? You can't jump into Gehenna. You can't. Because of you, we turned off all the fires. So he said, my whole life, all I ever did was save Jews. You think I'm going to go to heaven and go through here and watch all this suffering and not try to save some Jews? Fire's out, man. They're my brothers. I don't want them to suffer. Because it says that whatever a person is in this world, that is what you are in the next world. After 120 years, maybe I'm going to be in Yeshiva Shamali giving shiurim to women. I don't know. I don't know how exciting that is in the next world. I have no idea. But if that's what you did in this world, I don't know. Halavai. Fine. So he stood there and he said, that's what I did in that world, and therefore I'm not moving. So the Malach ran to Hashem. He said, God, what's going on here? We got to get this guy out of here. I can't turn on the fires. These people need to be punished. He says that he is not moving until he's able to save some of the Jews that are in Gehenna. So what HaKadosh Baruch Hu say? Hashem said, he says that he's not going until he saves some Jews. So the only reason, listen carefully, it's amazing. The only reason that we have to listen, including Hashem, to what he says is if all the times in this world when he said something he would do, he did it. If he was always MS and he never lied, then we can't make him lie here. But if he lied while he was alive, so he said, I'm not going, take him out. He's been a liar in this world, so he'd be a liar in that world. So let's check his books. So they went through his books. The Abdurrav never in his life said a sheker. Never said he was going to do something, I'm going to call you back. And he didn't call you back. I'm in big trouble. Huge trouble. I'm not going to take this chance, because there have been times I said, I'll call you back in 5 minutes. And it's been 5 years. So, they came back and they said, okay, we can't make you into a liar, but you can't stay here and save all of them. It's not going to work. So, they went back to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and they said, how many souls can he pull out of Gehenna with him and bring them into Gan Eden? So Hashem said, as many souls as he saved in this world, he has the right to save in that world. We'll look at the numbers. If he saved 300 souls, he could take 300 souls out of Gehenna and bring them. We can't even understand 1 second in Gehenna is worse than all the pain of a lifetime. So you can imagine, in walks this tzaddik and he has the power to take these people out. It's not normal. So Hashem said, how many people did he save? So what was the number? They looked it up and they said 220. He has a right to pull 220 souls out of Gehenna. So, where did Rabbi Yehuda Lev go? He went to the 7th level of Gehenna, which is the worst. If he's going to pull souls, he might as well pull the ones that are in the most pain. He went into the 7th level of Gehenna, and he took out 440. And he came to the gate, And the Malach said, what do you think you're doing? We gave you 220, and you got 440. You can't get more than 220. Amalai. He said, 220 is the number I took out for two reasons. One, I died. If I would have lived longer, I would have taken more out. Two, sometimes I wanted to take out. I didn't have the money. I tried to get the money, didn't have the money. If Hashem would have given me the money, and Hashem would have given me a longer life, I definitely would have doubled my numbers. And Tzitzi was an emes-dika person, and that's how important it is in this life to be emes. The Malach could do nothing, and he let them take 440 neshamas out of Gehenna. So, this week's Parasha's Matos, which talks about a person's word. A person's word has to be a word. My father, Olav Shalom, was his thing. You didn't have to sign a contract with him. You didn't have to shake his hand on a deal. If he gave his word, that was it. A person's word is who he is. Not a person's text, a person's word. Is who you are. And a person who doesn't keep his word, look what happens in the next world. You have no power in the next world, because whatever you say, they're like, yeah, sure, but in this world you didn't keep your word, so why do we have to keep your word in the next world? Very important when you're growing up that a person, you give a word to a friend, you give a word to a parent, you give a word in business, whatever it is, a person gives a word, even if you made a mistake. Even if you made a mistake, you got to keep your word. Of course, not if you're going to say I'm going to hurt somebody, then you should hurt that person. I'm talking about for the good. A person gives a word for the good, you must keep your word.